So Brandon Aiyuk openly flirting with another NFL team's head coach. That is a sign that he might want out. Steelers are interested in a trade for Brandon Aiyuk here, Larry. This is coming from Andrew Filipponi of Pittsburgh's 93.7 The Fan. The Steelers are looking to work out a deal with the 49ers for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, Brandon Aiyuk has approached Mike Tomlin, at least on Instagram, saying, people are saying we look alike. You do a little side-by-side comparison. There is some Mike Tomlin, Brandon Aiyuk facial crossover for sure. This is not, you really got to look at it. There is some facial look-alike between these two guys. So if that has anything to do with Brandon Aiyuk's choice, and he wants to play for a coach that looks more like him, Mike Tomlin looks a lot more like him than Kyle Shanahan does. There's no doubt about that. But Kyle Shanahan has put Brandon Aiyuk in an incredibly profitable situation because his chemistry with Brock Purdy's obvious. It's evident. It's easy to see. It'd be a shame to have that chemistry removed from Brock Purdy in such an important year for him. Aiyuk's 1,342 receiving yards, a career high. It's his second season, passing the 1,000-yard mark. The Niners obviously exercised his fifth option, but this is the land of I'm not playing for a one-year fifth option deal now for a player of Aiyuk's ilk. And apparently the Steelers are interested, more interested than the Jacksonville Jaguars appeared to be interested about this time last week.
Well, it's interesting. The fact the Steelers show interest is not surprising. Mike Tomlin, it's time for Mike Tomlin to start winning playoff games again. They brought in Justin Fields. He's the future, but they brought in Russell Wilson and he's the present. And I get the feeling that Mike Tomlin, despite all of his regular season success, could be on the somewhat hot seat, and it's time for them to win games. And if you look at their receiving core, Calvin Austin, 2022 draft choice, George Pickens, 2022 draft choice. The rest of the receiving core doesn't have hardly any experience. Their most experienced wideouts, Van Jefferson. They don't just need a number one receiver. They need a number one receiver who's ready to contribute to winning right now. Why would we take Brian Thomas and take a chance at 20 when we may be able to trade 20 to the Niners along with maybe something else and get Brandon Aiyuk? And then if you're the 49ers, would you make that move? I think the Niners have a number in mind. He may command 30 plus million, but their number might be 26 or 27. Like, we're not going beyond 26 or 27. So, and maybe the Steelers view Aiyuk more favorably and are willing to give more than the 20th pick. But I think it's going to take more than the 20th pick to get Aiyuk.
If I were an NFL player, and maybe this is, NFL players don't think this way. If I were an NFL player, I wouldn't be worried about a single detail other than guaranteed dollars. Annual average value. I know that it does matter to some guys. They want to wear the crown of, best, one of the top 5 paid guys in my position, blah, blah, blah. But if I were Brandon Aiyuk, I would just be starting with a $50 million guaranteed over 3. That's what you just saw, a player who's not as good as you, who isn't as proven as you. Calvin Ridley just got $50 million guaranteed over 3, and it's a 4-year deal for him. So Aiyuk's negotiating point would have to begin at $50 million guaranteed, you would think, from the 49ers. And another sort of your asking price is coming into focus based on the market fluctuating around you sort of headline has come out in the last 24 hours. The Cleveland Browns, who traded for former Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy just a couple of weeks ago, Jerry Jeudy just signed a 3-year, $58 million extension with the Cleveland Browns. So there's that number again, $50 million. Now, that's not guaranteed, but I wouldn't care about the average annual value. Who cares? Just guaranteed dollars is the only thing you're guaranteed. That's the number you should be focused on in any NFL contract, I would think.
Yeah, I think $50 million guaranteed is probably beyond their budget for Aiyuk. So, I mean, I think there's a better than 50-50 chance that Aiyuk gets traded. But it'll probably be on draft day. It just seems like, why are the 49ers we can listen to them or we can watch them. And if you watch them, they're interviewing Taliesin Fuaga and JC Latham. They're both projected to go between 10 and 20. The Niners pick at 31. They've interviewed both those guys.
If you're the 49ers, I think you're playing a little bit of a different game. Here's your Super Bowl window. Win it in 2024, or you're back to the drawing board in ridiculous ways. So Brandon Aiyuk, to me, brings the 49ers closer to winning a Super Bowl this coming season than any receiver, regardless of upside, that they could possibly go out and draft. And we also have the entirety of Kyle Shanahan's coaching career where we haven't seen bupkis produced by a single rookie receiver, Brandon Aiyuk included, under Kyle Shanahan. So you would just be totally going in the wrong direction in a gotta win it all year with finally a quarterback who gets a normal offseason to really work out with guys on his team to develop that special chemistry. And you would want Brock Purdy and Brandon Aiyuk even having more chemistry in year 3. And they had incredible chemistry together in year 2. And it would just be a shame if the receiver you've been looking for years, you finally got him, and now you got to say goodbye. Like, I think that the 49ers offense was pretty damn good last year. I would like to see that reduplicated as much as possible. And
I hear you, but it's also
look a lot different without Aiyuk.
It's a cap, and you gotta, this. I don't know if it's about anything more than the cap. I mean, teams have to make tough decisions. I could definitely see them trading multiple picks to Denver for Surtain. This is there's a right and wrong time to trade for the veteran edge piece, but the right time is when you're in your Super Bowl window and you've been just kind of hit and miss in the draft. That's what the Rams did. They said, you know what? We're kind of hitting and missing in the draft. We'll trade high picks for Stafford and Ramsey, and we'll win a Super Bowl. And because there's not a lot of mystery when you're trading for, Pro Bowl veterans. Well, this is the draft where they need offensive line and they could use a couple other pieces. Other than that, their other, primary need is a true number 1 corner. And you might be able to get a true number 1 corner by trading, a second and a third round pick in this year's draft, maybe a conditional pick in next year's draft. You could make that happen. So, and still replenish your O-line. So I'm eager to see what they do, because I think this is the year where, especially after watching what McDuffie and Snead did to the 49er receivers in the Super Bowl, this is the year I could picture Shanahan and Lynch saying, you know what? We need a true number 1, and we're going with Surtain, and we'll make the investment of draft picks to get it done. I think I could see it this year.
I'll tell you, if you're going to subtract a guy like Brandon Aiyuk, you better be adding someone who's going to make up for the few points per game you're no longer averaging with a better defense that is getting the job done. Because Brandon Aiyuk, I just think, deeply affects what this team's passing game is more than any other wide receiver on the team. He deeply affects the running game. I believe he's the best downfield blocker in a team where that is paramount for the running game to be successful. And I would just, again, I would be very, very anxious to see what next year would look like without Brandon Aiyuk. Shanahan is rough on his wide receivers. I don't think it's very fun playing for Kyle Shanahan at that position. Debo originally wanted out before he was given enough money to want back in. But he did want out. He was unhappy with the way he was used, with the way that he was being regarded, with the whole running back thing. So Kyle is tough on his guys. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. And I think that he rubs guys down a little bit, and maybe that is happening with Brandon Aiyuk. Again, he went on Instagram, tweeted at Mike Tomlin saying, they're saying we're twins. What do you think? So Brandon Aiyuk openly flirting with another NFL team's head coach. That is a sign that he might want out. And there's a price point that, might be the sign that brings him out of town after all. Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.